Let's hit the recording. And it should be going. All right, we should be recording. So I'm going to share my screen and go over a few things. Screen share, computer sound share. Optimize. Okay. Can everyone see that exciting Oregon Tech Management 345 Engineering Economy PowerPoint?
Yes.
It's a beaut.
Cool. Well, that's as good as it gets in this class. Sorry, guys. Okay. Now, pressing on regardless. If you're not here for this class, then you got to find something better to do with your Mondays. So, RSA Heavy Dragons. This is a course that is a love it or you hate it course. If it's required, you hate it. If you signed up for it as an elective, God bless you, you might hate it anyway. Because we're going to get into a lot of we's in this course. And it's a very quantitative course. And when you took your math classes, you always hated those word problems. This is a class that's based on word problems. No getting out of it. So what we're going to do today, I'll go over the syllabus. We'll talk about that in context with the Canvas. Talk a little about the textbook, how things are due and when, how a typical class will go. Then we'll have some Q&A. I'll do my exciting lecture type PowerPoints. And then we'll have a breakout problem solving section where we're going to work on it, and I'll tell more about what's that going to entail when you get down further in the syllabus. So if we pull up, I'm going to pull up my syllabus and put it on my sharing screen. You should see a syllabus on your screen now. This is the one that you can click on Canvas, those of you have it, and get the syllabus. And Timothy, shoot me an email at the end of this. I'll send you this if you don't already have it from some of the source. I'll shoot this to you via email.
All right.
So in the meantime, as you pull it up on Canvas, you notice it has fun information at the top, like what this is, called a syllabus in the engineering economy, and my name. And best way to get a hold of me is by email. Don't put my phone number on here. I can if someone wants it, but I check my voicemails right before I go to bed every night. So if you send me a voicemail during the day, I won't get to it till that night, but emails I check multiple times a day. So you got a far better chance of getting a hold of me via email than any other source that we have out there. Office hours are by appointment because we're not meeting on campus. What I am going to look into, and next week I'm going to send out a little poll for people during class, is this is a class that's very hands-on. And I'm going to see if there's a time that works for a lot of people where I might have an hour I just set aside on I don't know if it's going to be Wednesday afternoon, early evening, late evening. We'll talk about that next week. Where I'm just hanging out to answer questions before everything's due at the end of the week. Sometimes if people don't just going to be there on a certain time, it can help. I'm available other times, but if there's a time that works for a lot of people, I'll be happy to set it up. Completely optional. People will show up, but if you have questions on homework, any assignments that every week, most likely be some Wednesday, Thursday-ish time frame. Again, when I get feedback from everyone, I'll be able to talk next week and say, okay, maybe Wednesday at 5:05 or whatever it is. For now, right now, just by appointment, online or Zoom. I prefer Zoom over Teams. The meeting function on Teams, I'm not that fond of, but okay. Now then, one of the things you're going to see on this is draft. And it's saying on the one that's posted out there. I've gotten the habit of putting draft on it the first night of class because there's almost always someone that can find a typo on the syllabus and says, is this? So any typos people find tonight, I will correct and repost it tonight without the word draft on it. So anything you see that's like, what does this say? Does that mean I don't understand that? Let me know and I will correct it. Otherwise, you just may see the exact same syllabus that I posted out there today, tomorrow, only without the word draft. That's the sole purpose that draft is on it right now, in case someone finds a typo and I need to correct it. So, prerequisites you should all know about, or otherwise you wouldn't be able to register. And again, originally this was going to be an in-person class, 3 to 5:50, but we're doing weekly synchronous onlines. Now then, talking about this a bit is that the entire Zoom can last till 5:50 if you want. I find that most students on a class as intensive as this tend to have their brains start to explode a little after an hour. That's why as we get into the format of this, you're going to have some other deliverables called outside discussion classes on this, breakout sessions. I plan my lecturing part of this class to be about an hour of that time. Then we can have a break. We do some breakout sessions where we work on problems. Was that a question? I heard someone talking, but I didn't understand.
Oh, sorry, I left my mic on.
Oh, no, okay. As long as no one had a question, we're good. So my lecturing part of this class goes about an hour. And then we're gonna have a break and a breakout sessions where we work on some problems in smaller groups. It can go on. I'll be here right till 5:50 if you need me. But I find that the attrition rate tends to get a little bit severe after hour 2. And doing this entire class online in just a lecture format, can get a bit of intensive because sometimes you need to just go back and process stuff. But I'll be here as necessary the whole time. But my lecturing part, I'd rather have us spend more time on working on problems together. My lectures don't tend to be just reading the text back to you in PowerPoint form. I tend to highlight things that students historically have had questions on, or they get questions on the course of the class. So if you're not getting what you think you need to out of the class of lectures, the best thing you can do is say, hey, I'm not getting what I need out of this, or could you do this? I can turn on a dime. I've taught this class enough, I can turn on a dime to customize it as needed for different people. But if I don't get feedback, you're just getting the emphasis that the prior class before you asked for. All right. Now then, so Mondays, 3 o'clock, text is there, which we'll review in just a minute. Methodology is fairly standard: textbook reading, library research, written assignments, examinations, quizzes, lectures and discussion, and interactive group projects and activities. Fairly standard description. You can put that on almost any course at OIT. Grading, 1,000 points. Meaningful participation. That includes both participating during class, and one of the aspects we'll talk about more in a moment are the discussion groups. Since I'm not lecturing for 2 hours and 50 minutes as required by the syllabus, you have an outside discussion groups every week where you'll be given a topic, and they range greatly. Everything, it might be from one of the case studies in the book where you have to write some postings and answer someone else's, to like week 5 is just a discussion of what's going well in the course and what's not, and getting feedback from you on that. So they'll vary in different styles. Sometimes they just ask things to relate personal experiences to subject class matter, but discussion groups are out there weekly. You basically have 2 minimum assignments every week, at least 2. One is the discussion forum, and one is the homework assignment, which we'll talk about more in just a bit. You have 2.5 quizzes, and will make more sense when you pull up Canvas in a moment. 2 are quizzes that are based on the reading. One is about halfway through the class. As you'll see, again, more we'll get the schedule. Another one actually takes place your final. They're worth about the same as a homework assignment. And then we have a syllabus quiz. And again, I'll go through all this on the Canvas site, so you can see that. The attendance, 3 more unexcused absences can receive an automatic F for this class. So if you miss 30% of the classes, now if something comes up, life happens, and we have this pandemic thing going on, the main thing I ask is keep me in the loop if something's coming up in your world that's really impacting something that might cause you to be, this is not an ogre, but just keep in mind, because 2 semesters ago, one of my students' wife gave birth on class night. And so I wasn't going to say, sorry, wife should have picked a better night, you're absent. Just keep me involved. Keep us in the loop about where you are, what's going on, so we know if something's coming up. Keeping cell phones and other distractions away during class, that's a little harder to worry about online. I do expect you to read the text. The only time I'm forgiving about that is the first night of class tonight, because we will work on problems during class that are pertaining to that week. And one of the things, jumping a bit ahead to when I talk about the breakout sessions, one of the things we will do every week is start working on the homework that is due that week during class and breakout sessions. And so if you haven't kept up on your reading, you'll be falling behind when you get together in your groups and can't participate that. My goal every night is to have everyone walk away from the class, or perhaps I should say log off from the class, with at least one homework problem from these homework that week done and done correctly. If we get more than one in the time we do, that's great. But we're going to break out into groups and we're going to work through at least the first problem in the homework together. And if you have time for more, that's great. No, I don't consider that cheating. It's going to be general collaboration, so you get an idea what's going on. So if everything works perfectly, aha, Sumina's here. Oh, welcome. All right, so for those who got Scott here, we're going through the syllabus now. Same one that's on Canvas, so you can pull that up. So, where is it? Discussion forums. Again, you'll always have some form of question or postulate or case study to discuss. Try and get your initial posting in by Friday, because every week you're going to have to respond to at least one of the person's posting by Sunday when the whole thing is due and shuts down. But like your initial posting by Friday, and they're all date stamped when you submit them on Canvas, because it gives those that post early tend to often be subject to those that are waiting that don't post till like, you can't get a good discussion if you put your first posting at 11:50 on Sunday when the class the assignment's due at 11:59. Let's give everyone a chance to have at least a good initial posting so people can respond to you. Word count on the original post, this just should be a minimum of 150 words. That's like double spaced, half a page, double spaced in Word, if you will. And again, the one I say down here is responses to classmates' postings. Responses are something other than yeah, or cool, or I agree. It's meant to be a dialogue. In a live class, I would break you out into groups and we'd be having a dialogue on a particular subject, just like we break out later and work on problems together. So if in a live class, I break you out into subgroups and then we talk about some sort of subject very similar to what I put on the Canvas discussion groups. So this is one of those things that helps take place of 3 hours worth of class time. I reduce it a bit by having this discussion in its place because we'll be doing discussions anyway during class. Quizzes, they're administered via Canvas, multiple choice, true, false, occasionally an essay question. And they're based on assigned reading, lectures, videos. These are the anything goes. During my lectures, I tend to focus on the quantitative aspects. Ah, Sean's here. Ah, we're all in like Flynn now. Hey, Sean, I'm going over the syllabus stuff. So, let's say quizzes, Mr. Canvas, they're based on anything that may have been covered. As I started to say, I cover it during the lecture part of this. I tend to focus on the quantitative problem solving aspects of it. There's a lot of definitional stuff in the chapter that I gloss over during lectures, because I'm running through the assumption that you'll have read the chapter and you can read the definitions. And if you don't understand a definition, you can ask me about it. But I focus on what most students want, and that is to talk about calculation and problem designs and how to solve things. But the quizzes, and then the quizzes are basically 2, and they're weighted at the same points as the homework assignment. So not to be onerous, so that you spend weeks worrying about a midterm per se, but I tend to focus more on reading and definitional things in the quizzes than problem solving. There is some little simple problem solving, but since it's multiple choice, true, false, it's not going to get that into it, but it's very definitional and it can be based on anything we discuss in class. So if you fall behind on your reading, that can get you, when you come to quizzes. Moving along, unless I hear a question. Homework assignments. These are, we'll pull up the calendar, you'll see them listed everywhere, but they're submitted in Excel, and I'd say either Excel or PDF format, and show you calculations. Excel tends to be the best format. I do have some people do well things in PDF format. this class, that if depending on how your Excel skill levels are, Excel is one of the best tools to use for your problem solving and your homework assignments. Some people have different levels of comfort on it, but Excel is generally the preferred format. I'm not going to force you to use it, but it's more that can I read it from a standpoint of the grading, where I say the presentation and readability are key points for grading. In Excel, you know, if you've done a complex calculation, I can click on a cell in Excel, say that 3 times fast, and see how you calculated something. You know, if it's a PDF, depending how you set it up, I might be able to, but I grade not just getting the correct answer, but the methodology you use and the presentation of how it's organized. And I emphasize presentation because one of the top 3 and 4 things, generally 3, that employers look for is 1, Excel skills. And don't mean just pulling up and being able to hit the button that says bold, but be able to do some calculations, and we'll do calculations in Excel. You're going to learn some functionality that you don't know. You don't have to use Excel for all the calculations. We're going to learn different ways of using tables and other constant values. But if you can get to use Excel, your life is much easier. Not mandated, but your life will be much easier. So each answer should be in presentation format, as I described that. Think about if you were explaining this to your boss or your bank that you're going for a loan from, or a vendor you're trying to get credit from, how you can present them to show that why you're saying whatever calculation, whatever problem you're solving is the truth. Just giving a simple number answer doesn't get you there. Okay. Moving the other thing in papers is papers. You have 2 papers that are due this term, and generally they're article summaries. We're going to have you go out there and find either a trade journal or some peer-reviewed article, and we'll spend some time going over the library resources for those of you who haven't done that type of paper before on how to look up things. But it's going to be something related to the coursework that's out there. A lot of people pull up trade journals, again, or you can just search through these articles on your EBSCO database, on your online article database. We'll spend more time going over that. They should be done in APA format. And I always say, if all else fails, read the instructions. I'm giving the basics here. I've also posted the link to the APA 6 website. This class is not a class in APA, but I'm looking for your best effort. So at the very least, you ought to have the things highlighted here: formatted, double-spaced, 12-point Times New Roman, 1-inch margins. A cover page. One of the things I do when I get your assignments for these pages, I print them all out. And I go somewhere and read them. And if you don't care enough about your assignment to put your name on the front page, then basically I don't have to care enough to read it. Have pride in your work. Put it there. If I get a page with no name on it, I don't search through trying to figure out the one page that's missing someone's name with it. So put a cover page with your name on it. And very importantly, cite all sources and references so I can look them up, especially when you have an article-based paper. I need to be able to find the article, so get a good citation. We'll work about how the citations work as well. I'll give you some shortcuts to that. And it's in PDF format, submitted to Canvas. Now then, here's the one I would say: late work. Assignments submitted late will be subject to a 50% grade penalty unless a specific prior approval from the instructor is obtained. Prior approval doesn't mean, hey, I'm going to be late with my assignment this week. Hi. Make sure you get an email back from me saying why that it's okay. One of the things that's very important to this, and I'm jumping ahead in the agenda, is the very first thing I do on a typical class on Monday is I go through the homework problems one by one that were assigned for that week, or for the previous week, I guess. And so by the end of the half of the first class on any given week, you'll have all the answers to the homework. So you can still submit it late, but you only get 50% credit because I will go over all the answers right at the beginning of the class before you do anything else. If you submit it more than 1 week late, we don't grade it. Any questions on that so far? Hearing none. I'm going to go through this bit by bit. Now then, here's the schedule. And you notice each week, we're basically going through chapters 1 through 10. We have a couple of videos on a couple of other chapters, but 1 week per chapter. And homework alpha through homework kappa every week. Now then, the homework assignments are worth 50% each, or 50 points each. So think about that when we go back up. I'm going to zoom up again. Don't let me make everyone go dizzy. But assignments, which is the homework. You have 10 assignments, 50 points each. Who can see a problem with that math? No one? Oh, one is a freebie. So that's a yes, I dropped the lowest scoring assignment. I do the same thing with the forums. We have forums every week. Well, if you look at it down that way from the standpoint of forums every week on the points, you also, if you have that 1 week where you were sick, missed a forum, whatever it is, you also have one forum. So I dropped the lowest score. So if you skip a forum 1 week, though that 0 will be the one that's dropped. So you get one of the meaningful participation forums dropped, whichever is lowest, and you get one homework dropped, whatever the lowest score is. Canvas picks the lowest score, so if you skip 1 week, then you get a 0, that's the one that will be dropped. So that's why when the math works out, we have 10 weeks, discussion forum every week, a homework assignment every week, but at the end of the 10 weeks, the lowest score in each category will be dropped. Cool. Now then, you'll see you have 2 quizzes, one at week 6 and one at week, essentially finals week. Again, they're going to be multiple choice, true, false, and they're worth the same amount as a homework assignment, 50 points, with one exception. And this is where I'm going to go to Canvas, because you actually have 3 quizzes, one of which is not shown on here. Bear with me if I go over and pull Canvas over here. So everyone should see the Canvas website now. Now at the top, you'll see syllabus quiz. Now this is the same quiz that comes as standard stock that's loaded for every single course module for every single professor out there. And it has questions of things with 0 points to say, what is the last day to drop? What is the school's policy and whatever it is. The syllabus quiz has 5 questions, 5 points each, pertaining to the syllabus I just went over. This is also the one I'll use to verify attendance for this first week. For those of you who need attendance verified for your student loans and stuff like that, don't skip this quiz. It does count, it's 25 points. Okay, not a massive amount for this class, but you need to take it. I'll use that to verify. Oh, see, our quizzes take home. Well, considering you're taking them at home, or wherever you take them, yes, is the short answer. You're taking them at home.
That.
Pardon?
I'll say I know that came off kind of silly on how I phrased it, since obviously we are at home.
No,
I meant more time duration that we're going to have to take the quiz.
I believe you have 2 hours to do the quiz. You won't need it. Now, as soon as I say that, someone's going to get 1 hour and 45 minutes in panic. There, I can't tell you the exact number of questions on it. I have all the questions done right now. I don't complete the quiz until the week before I start it, because occasionally, and this is where we go back to the if for some reason, like the quiz is going to appear in chapter 6, and I think we just need a little more time on chapter 5, or 6, whatever it is for that week, because quiz 1 will also include chapter 6, because it's due at the end of the week. Sometimes I will push off one of the chapters to the next quiz if I think we need to have more time spent on something. But that doesn't change the value of the total quiz. So, but just be aware of that. But it is take home, multiple choice, true, false. You can be doing it in the comfort of your own home. I think it's I give you 2 hours to do it. I mean, rarely do I have someone taking more than an hour to do it. I say, if you've got 2 hours to do it, use the whole time. Again, it's open books, open notes, because I'm not going to, I'm not coming to your houses, stand behind your back and watch you take the quiz. So I'm not going to, impose restrictions saying, no, you must put all away your stuff, something I can't enforce. But I believe it's 2 hours. I'll have to double check the time. It might be 90 minutes. I can go check in Canvas in a minute. But you'll have plenty of time for it. And again, it's based largely on reading material, and it's more definitionally oriented as opposed to the calculation oriented. The homework is very calculation oriented each week. The quiz is going to be that, did you actually read the chapter and study definitions? So I spend less time on that and more time on calculations. As I said before, that's where I find most students need the time of class spent on. So don't skip this quiz. Click on the syllabus. You bring up the syllabus I've just been having up there. This Oxford Learning link is actually, this book, which you're just about to go into, has a great deal of resources associated with it. If you want to sign on to the Oxford Learning link, and I've posted a lot of the resources on Canvas already, but there's a lot of supporting materials, hints and stuff like that, where you can register and log in and then pull the textbook up, 14th edition, and you'll be able to get some extra resources here, free of charge to students. But don't be afraid to go in there and just poke around on this. There's a lot of stuff out there that can be useful. So to that effect, let's go to this. Then you have every week is decorated out here. The first thing you'll see on every week is game plan for week 2. This should be your first thing you click on for week 1. What do you got to do? Well, reading and viewing. Chapter 1 from the text. Video links on the Canvas week 1 module. Reading and viewing. Assignments, other to-do items. Participate in Monday Zoom class. Well, if you've logged on, you're doing that now. Cool. Assignment alpha. We'll pull up the actual assignment alpha before we're done with a look at it. And then your discussion forum. So those are your 3 deliverables for this week. Zoom, assignment alpha for the homework, and discussion forum. So you say, what do I have to do this week? Your game plan each week tells you that. So if you don't do all these 3 of these things, one of which you've already done or are doing now, you're cool. Then let's close this so we can get more. Discussion forum. This is the discussion forum you have to participate in. And this week, you can click on it. This week, you got an ethics thing. The first chapter goes on some ethics, and you basically have to answer a question about it, about a personal life, about how one of these things has come up. You'll post it, your first posting by Friday, and a follow-up posting by Sunday. As the syllabus says at the very bottom, unless otherwise noted, everything's due by Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Some things are noted here, like the quiz 2 is due Monday of finals week. So look on the assignments. I don't think there's anything other than that that's an exception, but it'll say on the assignment if for some reason I've done something like that. But 11:59 every week is Sunday. So this assignment alpha is due, it says right there, due this Sunday by 11:59 p.m. It's available after 12:01 a.m. this week. And you got some problem sets. Now here, you'll see this week we're talking about chapter 1. There's an incentive to get caught up in your reading. I often will include one problem for the following week's reading. It's usually a very simple problem, but one of those things that if you just skim the chapter, do the exam, read the examples, you should be able to do this. So it's not a typo where next week, or see by this week, you actually have a problem for the following chapter because the reading is due by the beginning of class. Might you be able to do it without reading the chapter? Maybe. It's not an onerous problem, but in this case, you have 4 problems from chapter 1, and we're going to do at least one of these tonight to get out of the way. So then you have videos, and these actually are videos produced by the textbook publisher. Excel basics, so let's need some professional on Excel. Most of these videos are 2 to 4 minutes. This one is, let's see, how long is it? Hit play. Come on. Don't embarrass me. Why aren't you playing? Come on. It should be playing, but it's not. Give me a second, see if it's student view.
I was trying to play them today too, and I couldn't get them to play.
I may have to play the URL for that. Now all these videos I have posted on here. I'll double check why it's not playing. It's supposed to be, but if you go to this Oxford Learning link and type in the book, all these videos are on there. So when you go into the technical support, so I'm going to see if I can like. Where is it? ARC. When you log in, I'll pull up what you'll see. You'll see something like this. Instructor validation. And when you click on this, student resources, you'll see the very videos I posted out there on chapter 1. Intro to Excel. This Excel basics is this Excel basics. So these 3 videos here are these 3 videos here. All I did is post the URLs for these. I'll have to look in to see, unless maybe because I'm not logged on, but I can't read them. So I don't think, because I haven't logged in. That may be it. I didn't log into the site. So if you go to this site, they're giving you URL on the top welcome part. Then when you go to this site, you'll be able to see each of these videos chapter by chapter, along with different hints in that. Chapter 2 video CFD, the video is this video. So if you can't do it, go to that website under Oxford Learning link, and the exact videos are there, but I'll work on seeing if I can figure out why they're not done. It might just be because I'm not registered on the site at the moment. So my password is visible, so I can't do it right now to show you. But these videos are really good. Go to the companion site on the Oxford Learning link, and you get straight to these videos and more. There's more stuff out there too. Is the 14th video of the textbook required? Yes. Now, in the context that I'm thinking, you might say, can you get away with the 13th or earlier version? The problems and assignments won't match up. 14th did some big changes. This is actually the first year I'm teaching with the 14th. We upgraded from the 13th a few years. And the problems don't match up, and the chapters are a little off.
Professor?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. My Wi-Fi was just like down for whatever reason for the last 2 minutes. But so I got a little bit of what you said about the textbook and
Okay.
showed us where the videos were.
Yeah.
And so was that pretty much all we got to do to outside of Zoom to complete the assignments and quizzes, or do we need to do more?
I'm not sure. You say outside of Zoom.
Zoom
Yeah.
and the videos you showed, that should be everything we need to do, right? Everything we need to watch.
Well, the video here are, yeah, these are things to help you through it. Could you get through without these videos? Maybe, but they're really valuable. I'm not going to grade you on whether or not you watch the video. They're there as an added resource. And that's way, so if I can't get onto them through here because I'm not signed in, you can go to the Oxford Learning link and sign up.
Right. And sorry, what I'm trying to ask is like, what else do we have to see? Because I see what you're doing.
Well, I mean, yeah, there'll be weekly lectures. I mean, the reading, of course. The videos, I'll post the videos here. Again, we talked about the discussion forums. I'm not, anything I produce generally in class, like if I show an article or something, I'll always post the link to it on Canvas.
Uh-huh.
Occasionally I'll come up with something. I might see something in the news that's particular to that week's. So I might post another link, I'll post the URL out here,
Uh-huh.
if you will. So most things will be on here from a viewing standpoint: textbook, the weekly lectures, and these videos, which are recommended. Again, you're not being graded on whether you watch them or not, but I advise it because there's good information on here.
Right, of course.
On how to do the problems. But you're not going to get I'm not going to give you an F if you don't watch the intro video of Excel basics.
Uh-huh.
It's
Right.
an added resource, not a requirement.
Okay. The link you were just on, you were on a page where there were like 20 videos, and then there was another page where there were only 3 videos.
Yeah,
So
and
we
this
gotta
is,
watch.
when you log into the Oxford link, you'll go there and you'll register, and that's when you go to this page and you register, and you can search for the book, and you'll come up to something like this. Now, like the facing page is, I'll go backwards a couple. Come on, going back. You'll get to that's one too many instructor resources. You don't want that. But there's a student resources right here.
Mhm.
Engineering economics. When you click on that, it takes you, we're thinking, to a page like this, which lists every chapter. And you just click on chapter 1. You have the 3 videos I posted on the Canvas.
Oh, okay.
You
I
click
thought
on
it was all those videos before you clicked on chapter 1. Okay.
No, all chapters has a bunch of other, case work problems and that. Click on an individual chapter, you get the Excel basics. Again, these are the exact same videos I post on Canvas. Same for 2. Some have 1 week's. Chapter 3 has several. So you can go straight to here once you register and pull up. Again, it doesn't cost any money to register. They just want you to get you on a probably mailing list so they can tell you why their textbooks are the best textbooks on the planet. But yeah, once you go to here and go to student resources, click on the chapter you're studying, it'll put up these videos, and you can just click there, and the rest is history. It means you have the video just like it looks like on Canvas.
Got it. I have one more question. So since you link all the videos for that chapter onto Canvas, is there anything else that we should pay attention to in the Oxford website? Or is that
if you go through them, there are different works sessions and different things you can go through the student resources to find. Just poke around a bit. I just put the videos up there because those are the quick and easy ones. They're all 2 to 4 minutes long.
Okay.
I think the longest one I've ever seen there is like 9 minutes. But it's just a good site to poke around on it, because they also may send you the links. Like if you want more help in Excel, there are other links you can go to. For Excel, I always say go to YouTube. If you're not sure about something, there's almost too much information on YouTube for these types of things. So again, not a requirement. They're there just as another enhancement.
Okay.
But they're worth reading. One here, like this one, is something I've posted, which is not a chapter video. That's really, if you look at the indented ones, or from the workbook, textbook. Non-indented is something that I post. Don't expect you to go there and judge the indentations, but I'll stick videos out here I think that might help clarify some of the writing and stuff that we're talking about. Now then,
answer my question.
Any more questions? What?
No, that'll be it. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
I have a question.
Yes. What you got?
I think I missed it. Are we required to purchase the 14th edition of that book?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah. People have tried to do it with previous editions, but you'll find the homework problems are different. This instructor, and there's an old saying in academia, the only perfect textbook is one you yourself write. But one thing this professor does, and that's why we often hang on with the old editions for longer. First thing he does, it's not him, he gets one of his grad students to do it for him, but is they change some key problems in the book. So 13th edition problem 2 in chapter 2, it will not be the same problem in the 14th edition problem 2 chapter 2. They'll also go in, like, say, one problem may have 500 students go to the ball, how many should do so-and-so? He'll change to 450 students. So the problems in the homework are actually different. sometimes subtly different, but if you use the old one, you won't have the same problems, numbers matching up between 13th, 14th, or 14th and 12th, and so on. So,
How long should we budget for homework?
you know,
Are we looking at 5 to 6 hours? Are we looking
that's
at
an,
10
that's an
plus?
excellent question, and I hate to say it, but it really varies depending on how comfortable you are with some of the. This is the class where different people take vastly different times, and that's what I say. You know, like on the quizzes, I don't think it'll take you an hour. As soon as I see that, some student takes an hour and a half to do it. I don't. When I did the homework, it took me about an hour when I redid all the problems. Now I had to format mine a little nicely and redo that, but it took me an hour probably to do chapter ones because I rework all the problems every time a new edition comes out, and I check whether the answers are correct in the back of the book. I think I've got all the corrections for any answers in the back of the book. Some of the questions you have you'll see the little A next to it. And then when you look at the question, that means there's an answer in the back of the book. Sometimes the answers are wrong, and I've gone through and looked for them. If I've missed one and you think I've done this 10 times and can't figure out why I can't get the answer in the back of the book, shoot me an email. Maybe it's one I missed. So keep that in mind.
Do you think a safe assumption would be 2 to 3 hours per homework assignment?
I think that's safe. Again, we're going to do my goal, and the homeworks vary in length. Some are three questions long. You know, some are like this one are 5 questions long, I think, on the first one. And it all depends on the length of it and how intensive it is. And this is one of those questions I'm going to say to everybody. They're very different styles of questions as you go chapter to chapter. Some chapters you're going to just say, oh, this is so simple, I get it. And other people are going to have a lot of hard trouble with it. That's why I get you in breakout groups to talk amongst each other and work out a problem together. We deal with a lot of concepts here that are new, some that you've never really have seen before. And so you need to be prepared for that as you go through this. So, who I am, should have done this first before I got into that. But I've been teaching at OIT since about 2016, I think. What decade is this? This is all the stuff that says why they let me teach you guys. I always follow up with one of my favorite quotes. The world is filled with highly educated idiots. My dad said that, died 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Already talked about the textbook. This is what it looks like. Same one that's out there on the website when you look up the class requirements. So it's, again, I will criticize the textbook now and then. I think among textbooks, it's pretty good. There are some things I don't like how he does, which is why I'll often go over certain sections doubly, because I don't like how he predicts or presents certain problems. Generally, as these types of books go, it's pretty good. My biggest criticism is how he changes his answers and questions every time he does a new edition. So, unless there are any questions, I'm going to move on to the exciting PowerPoint part of this lecture. What are we doing time-wise? 13:50. I'll give everyone about after 4 o'clock. I'll see if everyone wants to take a quick break. We don't need a break before we do the problems, the workout problems. So I'm actually going from this is what the class is about and what the requirements are, to the actual exciting lecture part of this class. Any other questions before we go forward? Hearing none, I'll go forward. And yes, I will, Kay. Quantitative analysis. That's often what you'll hear this same type of question or same type of course titled quantitative analysis a lot. There is a quantitative analysis course I also teach here at OIT. That one's a little different. That's more in a technique class. This is more of an applied, here's real problems that we can think of, or the textbook's best attempt to give you real world problems. It is one of the most powerful things. I made my career on the quantitative side, largely in healthcare and IT. I used to work back in the old days when Mentor Graphics was Mentor Graphics across the parking lot from us at OIT. Spent a lot of time working there before I started teaching full time. But it's one of the things that people love to hate, but there's a lot of power we're going to be talking about in this class. So I'm going to go over this first chapter is basically one of those what I call trying to get your mind right type of chapters, trying to get you in the mode of thinking about how to deal with essentially the word problems that we're going to be dealing with in this class. So a lot of it, when it talks about analysis techniques and how you focus on the problem in a moment, we'll have a nice diagram from the chapter embedded in here. It's about decision making and how you make decisions, how you analyze stuff. And we're going to deal with a lot of financial aspects. You're going to hear us, one of the things you're going to get over and over after about chapter 4 is time value of money and time value of decision making. How do you judge how much a dollar 10 years from now is compared to a dollar today? And you're going to learn interest rates. We're going to deal with that in different ways. We're going to deal with manually, what I call manually, worry about what that means later, and Excel versions. Both versions are good for certain things. So we're going to focus on problems that face organizations, whether it be big firms or little ones. And we're going to do we'll do personal finances. Now then, this is actually a slide I stole from the book. What type of things you can be asked to do? Buy or lease problems on intermediate problems. Is it cheaper to buy something or rent it? Many of you have made this decision about cars. Do you buy a car or lease a car? What goes in that decisions? Corporations deal with that all the time. You know, do you build a new automobile plant? Do you build it during a recession, hoping the economy will get better, but it's cheaper? Or do you wait till there's an actual demand out there? All these things come into play. Like with cash or credit card or debit card. Cash and debit cards, by the way, are legally the same. But do you buy something on cash or credit? Parking meters are, well, be glad you're not down in Klamath Falls where they have to worry about parking meters and parking passes. So, role of engineering economic analysis. It's a fancy way of saying what the numbers tell us. Economic analysis. That the economic in there is basically to say, hey, we're doing numbers. Now then, basically, it's how you justify what you're doing and how you're analyzing stuff. Economic aspects we're going to deal with, but we're also going to talk about, and this is where the chapter gets a little odd on its ethics sections, about how you make decisions. Do you value certain things? Do you value sustainable practices more than just cheapest practices and things like that? To figure out where the money's coming from, how long you do things, how you get the best value for whatever decision you're trying to make. Now this is where to spend several minutes, pages on chapter 1. This is the diagram. Oh, let's see where they have it on. Those of you who have your book out, which when you get it is handy. Oh, it's page 7. They hit you with this. This is the book's attempt to get you, this is what I call that sort of, everyone saw the old movie Cool Hand Luke, getting your mind right. Trying to get your ideas about how you're going to analyze and look at problems and decide what they're asking you to do and what you need to do to get it. You know, recognizing the problems, define the goal, assemble relevant data, you know, identify feasible alternatives. And you know, this one uses 9 steps. Different textbooks will give you a different version of this, might have 7 steps, some will lump them in together 5 steps. The whole idea is getting down to asking, what are you really being asked for? What data do you have? What does that data tell you on different decisions you can make? And how you decide what's best? You model it, you can be doing it on a weekly basis and present your alternatives. And the one I like best after you choose the alternative that is the most overlooked in the real world is audit the result. Most people, and I say the work I've done with government is the worst at this, is they come up with a great answer. Yes, we analyze the problem. Yes, this is what we should do. Let's do it. And you never go back again and look at it and see whether it actually happened what you thought would happen. So audit the result. Most places in different organizations will fail because they stop here at 8 and they never go back to see if what they're trying to make happen really happened. So initial elements, recognize the problems. When you get these problems like the ones you get this week in homework, look at it and say, what is it trying to ask me to do? Just spend a minute, read it, take a deep breath for 30 seconds. A lot of what we're doing isn't the stuff where you can just say, oh, get your pen and say, read the, oh, okay, and start writing it. You got to think about what am I being asked, what information is out there. And that's where the first couple of weeks is trying to get used to that type of thing. Just look at what are we being asked for. And then we'll give you more and more tools to do more and more complex analysis as the class goes on. Assemble relevant data. What do you have? What do you know? Where does it come from? You know, how reliable is it? All right, example 1.1, straight out of the book. This is what, on page, what, 9, we skipped 2 pages. And again, this is where I spend a lot of my time in lectures because most people say they want to have more time on working out problems. So I tend to spend, I breeze over that little section on decision-making processes, read it so it gives you good perspective. It's not sacrosanct, but get the idea of how to look at what you're being asked to do. And this is, I like this example because it's something I had to do when I was at Regents years ago. To make 30,000 copies, in-house charges are direct labor, materials, overhead, total cost, $793. One of the things this example does is start getting you terms you can be using on a regular basis. And one of the videos I put out there for this week and next week is a video that deals with costs out there. If you want to get a preview of different ideas, short run costs down here on this macro topic 3.2 in week 1. That's one of the stuff. And then we have cost curves and that, which are really confusing from chapter 2. But different types of costs. That's why I put some of these videos out there. A commercial printer charges $688. So do you hire someone to do it or you do it in-house? And it's one of those things where you got to take a minute and say, okay, what's what? Well, what do you know? You got direct labor, materials, and overhead. Direct labor, those of you who haven't had your cost accounting, that generally means something that someone's physically doing something. You might have someone who's having to pick up a ream of paper and put it into a printer. Someone might have to pick up finished copies and put it in a pile. Direct labor. Materials required. Now then, here's where you start thinking, what do I know? I've got all these costs to do it in the house, but there's some conditionality with it because you got overhead charges. Well, overhead generally is that stuff that is what's necessary to keep the lights on. You might be fanning out your job to a commercial printer, but you still have a building with accountants and finance people and that all have to keep going. So if you send your job out to do an outside vendor to do the printing, you're still going to have overhead costs because you still own the building, you still pay rent, you pay electricity, maybe a little less electricity if you're not doing it in-house, but you still have a bunch of costs or overhead that you're going to pay whether you do it in or out of your business. And these are the types of things it's trying to get you to think through on an example like this. So direct labor, well, if you don't use your people, are you saving money? Are you laying those people off? Or are you going to have to pay them anyway? And that's the type of decision making. If it said, okay, that direct labor, you're not going to have to pay the people that $228 because you're going to fire them all, just do outside. In that case, the direct labor might be saving that $228 up here. Overhead costs, not really, not so much. Materials, yeah, if you're not printing it in-house, the materials, you're not going to spend them. So that is a savings. But the savings, people who just look at this and say, total cost of in-house is $793, commercial sending outside is $688. Well, it's cheaper to send it outside. Not when you start thinking about what am I going to have to pay anyway. I'm going to pay $688 for it, but I'm going to have to pay my overhead anyway. I'll save on materials, but I can't fire everybody. And that's how, and this is a question that's more of logic than anything else. well, it's cheaper to use in-house printing because labor and overhead costs, you're probably going to have to pay anyway. You at least have to pay a substantial portion of this anyway. So even if you only pay half your overhead and half your labor because you fire half your people, well, you're still going to add up with more than that 793 if you added half this and half this to your 688. And this is one of those problems of trying to get you to think through what you're actually being asked. A lot of people, ooh, lost 2 people. A lot of people just jump to these last 2 numbers and say, oh, it's cheaper. Send a printer charged outside. But what are you actually saving? That's what we have to look out at this problem. Does that make sense to anybody? Don't have a single hand saying
Absolutely.
that. Okay. Ralph gets it. All right. 3 people like it. But this is where some people are going to look at this and say, some people are going to say, that's cool. This is the type of decision making you have to do in order to set up the problem. Now then.
So will we
go.
Will we be expected to do this kind of thought extrapolation on each problem, like justify where money's going and why we should pay it there versus paying someone else?
The short answer is yes. No, maybe not every problem, but you're going to be required to do this type of thinking on problems on an ongoing basis.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, the short answer is yes. Is it every problem? I mean, there are going to be some problems when it's just like a plug and chug, because I'm seeing if you can do the formula in Excel. Okay, but most of them are going to require some sort of sitting down and thinking, what am I being asked, really? And what did my data say? So here's one that's sort of an engineering student. Do we know any of those? Is offered a loan of $5,000 per year for 4 years. Loan must be repaid after graduation. Okay, is this a good deal? This is kind of like how student loans work. Is it, logically, is this good or bad? Anyone want to guess? No one. No one's want to guess. I can see.
I'm guessing C.
C. Well, what they're going to say is, yes, it is. Now then, it's a little tough question to spring on this, but when you think about it, what they're supposing is it's an interest-free loan for 8 years. And this is what we say, loan must be repaid after graduation, not being charged anything out. And the assumption is, well, after all this time, don't have to pay it back while you're in school for 4 years. You got 4 years afterwards. The assumption is you'll be able to pay it back better, or more easily when you got a real job after graduation. And again, this is how, in theory, no one yell at me for saying this, student loans are supposed to be designed so that you'll be able to pay it back when you're out there in the workforce. So you basically don't pay it back until you're done, theoretically. I know there are some changes on that, but for the purpose of this assignment, okay, you're in a better thought. This is more of a logic question. It's got dollars in there, but it's sort of saying what makes sense. And it's alluding a bit to the time value of money, where $5,000 today might be worth more than $5,000 in 8 years when you consider inflation. So you actually might be paying, accounting for inflation, and this is jumping ahead to chapter 3 and 4, $5,000 equates to less money in the future 8 years from now than it does today. So in that decision-making process, just going all those things a little bit, identify feasible alternatives, include as many alternatives as possible, brainstorming, identifying alternatives. Brainstorming is actually controversial in quantitative analysis. It's one of those good kumbaya things, but you guys are going to be doing a lot of brainstorming in this class when you get into small groups. But there's that old, too many cooks can ruin the pot type of idea on that. That's all I'll say on that, but brainstorming is a good idea to come up with ideas that you don't think of. And analyze feasible alternatives. You can't say, I won't have to pay that student loan back because I expect an asteroid to come and wipe us out like the dinosaurs. No, keep it real. Criteria, and this is where, what inputs and outputs do you have? What do you got to work with? Look at the data to say, okay, is this fixed? Does it vary on how much I produce? Does it cost more for each thing? Or is it just one fix? Is it overhead where I just pay a flat rate to the electric company every month? Does anyone do that on their electric bills where they have where they do that deal that you can get from PGE, where they give you a bill, equal bill every month based on what on average you should have? And I think they call it, I can't remember the name they call it, but basically they look at it every year and give you, on average, you might spend more on heating in December, you might spend twice as much as you do in July, but they'll average out what you spend in the year and give you a bill for that amount every month. And then at the end of the year, you either get more money back or you give a true up. Has anyone ever done anything like that? No? Okay, well, you can do it. But the idea of that is to create a fixed cost for something that might be variable. Generally, electricity is variable. The more you use, the more you pay. They're trying to turn that into a fixed cost so you can predict, your future payments. Construct models, we're going to do that a lot. Again, these are just the top ones from that nice diagram on page 7. Predict your outcomes. Construct models, physical or math. Choose the best alternative, and I said audit the results. Does what you say is going to happen actually happen? And this is where most things fail, especially in project management. I don't do the project management chapter in this because there's a whole class in project management you can take. So I teach it sometimes. But is what actually happening, doing what you predicted? It's a scary thing to do this because no one wants to be wrong. So you solve problems, implement it, and never look back. Then you wonder why someone else comes along after you've left and solves the same problem again. Audit results, special effects with the arrow. Now then, example 1.2. And this is where, a great example, you got to sit back and think. This is straight from, so you may notice if you're following along the book, I've skipped over the ethics section for now. Come back to that later. This is on page 19 in the chapter. This is actually a very classic model they give people. Some of you may have had this in algebra on the different numbers. A concrete aggregate mix must contain at least 31% sand by volume. Oh my goodness. And you got two sources. One source of material has 25% sand and 75% coarse aggregate for $3 a cubic meter. Another source has 40% sand, has 6% coarse aggregate, and sells for $4.40. Well, you could just buy the one at 40%, because you know that's over 31%, and call it good. But it's a lot more expensive than the cheaper sand, and you need something in between. So this comes out basically to an algebra problem. You got to determine the least cost per blended mixture. You're going to take one which only has 25% sand, which is less than the 31%. One that has 40% sand, which is more than the 31%. So how do you figure this out? Well, it's called this. And this is where I pull up a different way of doing this. Here's what I put in. I put on an Excel spreadsheet. This is what I would do in a homework problem. Your sand requirement contents are 31%. Source 1 has 25. Source 2 has 40. 6% of aggregate. How do you know that 6% is aggregate? How would you come up with this number if they just said 40% sand? Yeah. The total amount is 100%. 40 plus 60 is 100. 25 plus 75. Now in the example, they don't tell you that. But the magic is you're going to have a proportion of 1 plus a proportion of 2 is equal to 1, or you can say 100%. Same thing. In my example, I use percentages on everything. So X is the source from source 1. X 100% minus X is from source 2. Now the word problem fanatics will say, oh my goodness, how do you come up with that? And I'm not being facetious when I say that, because this is sort of thinking through how do you do it. You've had a problem like this in algebra. The portion of 1, the percentage you're using of X plus the percentage you're using of Y is equal to 1 or 100%. So you're being asked for the least cost. That means you're going to have to use the cost factors you've been given. Cool. Well, you know that least cost blend is just enough of the $4, actually it's $4.40 material. What was it? $4.40. So you got 25% sand content in this one, 40%. So whatever percent of this you're going to use times the 25% amount plus 1 minus X. How do you get 1 minus X? Well, you know it's X plus Y. Y is equal to 1 minus X. Cool. So you just stick that and say, okay, this is the aggregate percentage of this. We need 31%, so we're going to have some amount of this blended with some amount of this to get 31%, and you just solve for X. So it'll be X is 60%. So how much of Y do you need? Who wants to guess? Exactly. How do we know? That's what the percentage of Y we need, because 100% minus 60% is 40%. So then you can say 0.6 times that $3 source plus 0.4 times the $4, actually I think it's 4.40 amount, which is equal to 3.56 cubic meters. That's what it's going to cost you if you buy the mouse proportions. I do the same thing in Excel. For my solution, I just wrote that stuff out here and said, okay, source 1 is equal to 0.6 times that. Source 2, and I can have to post these out for you. Source 2 is equal to 1 minus the X times E8. That's the cost of 0.2. That gives you your $3.56. A little bit of algebra there. And again, so at the very beginning, this is a class in word problems. Oh, 4:14, we'll take a break soon. Hopefully we'll get you out here before 5. Today's a little longer than I will go because you spent the first half of the class doing syllabus and stuff. So, next example in the book is on page 20. And everything I did just now on PowerPoint is in the book. I'm just copying the book stuff. So you got a machine. Whoops, I thought I put that. Decision making for current costs. Basically, it's saying a machine part is manufactured at 40% material, 15% direct labor. An investment of $500,000 in tooling is required, and it calls for 3 million pieces. Halfway through the order, manager learns a new method is coming up. Oh my goodness. And he's going to get this stuff. New cost materials. Should you, and he's basically saying halfway through the order, which you can switch to a new method, which has a different cost structure. Should you do it? Now then, if this comes up to you halfway through the job, what does that mean? How many pieces have you made if it's comes to you halfway through? Yes. Yeah, you're halfway through. So you've already spent some money. And how do you know how much money you spent? Well, you've got half of this, 3 million, and you've got 1.5 million pieces, and you spent it at this rate. Plus, you had to do some investment at the beginning of $500,000. Well, so we now switch to my spreadsheet, how I set this up. Okay. Present method, maybe make this bold so it shows up nicely. And I'll put a line through it to separate it. Cool. So, present method. Well, you've got 0.4 times 1,500. How much did you spend on materials so far? 0.4 per unit. I know 0.4 because they told you every one you make is going to cost that much. You've made half of them. So you spent 600,000 on materials. How much did I spend on labor? Well, labor costs you 15. How do you know? Because it says you in that chapter. And how do you get that? Well, you spend on labor 1.5 times that cost that you were given on pages 20. Cool. So, other. What it tells you is the tooling will not be used for future orders. Other costs are allocated at 2.5 times direct cost. Now, this is where, when people do this, they'll say you got to read, look at the chapter. And those of you who don't have the book in front of you, no, maybe I can scan this problem for you as the book is, and I'll post it. I know at least two of you don't have the book right now. So, but also as you go through these things, it tells you all these costs. And I always say, don't skip ahead too fast. Read the problem, because it says, okay, order calls, so 3 million, halfway through you can do this. But what people will forget is not reading the whole problem. The tooling will not be useful for future orders. So basically, what you've done so far, that $500,000 that you spent setting up the first process, is gone forever. Other costs are allocated at 2.5 times direct labor costs. So you have 3 costs. You have materials, labor, and other. And this is where yes. Well, some people want to see why I'm laughing. You can turn on your chat box sometimes. So you got other costs. So you have materials, labor, and other. People who mess up on a problem like this don't read it and they forget about the 2.5 times that miscellaneous costs. Read the problem through and look at all the costs you got. You have materials, labor, and other. Now then, you got 2.5 times that. So cool. Adding that up, that gives you your number that you spent so far. Cool. Now then, a new method. Well, the new method, you know, from on chapter or page 20 has told you. If you go to the new method, you're going to be cheaper on materials and labor. You're going to have to do some more tooling, and your other costs are still 2.5 times labor cost. So is it worth stopping what you're doing, spending the extra $100,000, knowing that you're going to spend less money on materials and labor?
What does it mean by that other cost, 2.5 times labor?
There's some other cost, could be overhead, could be anything. And that's the way, one of the things that you can get bogged down into is that things like that, you're getting into they'll say just, here, overhead is this. Well, for the purpose of the problem, you don't have to worry about what goes into overhead. Just take as they give it to you is how they allocate it. I would have just said overhead, some other cost that has to be allocated out. As we saw in the other examples, materials, labor, and overhead are often 3 common things these books use. Overhead is that magic thing that might include the salaries of the accountants, the electricity, the rent on the building, something that's not directly pinned to how many widgets you make. In this case, labor, and the risk of getting into a cost counting, which I used to teach, lecture, it's not uncommon to allocate certain overhead costs like electricity and that on the direct labor that it takes to make something. And the rationale is that, well, the more people we have in the building doing stuff, the more electricity we use, the more rent we need, because if we have too many people, we need more building space. And it's a common practice to use labor costs as a basis to allocate overhead costs. It's a long-winded answer to your question. So it doesn't tell you what comes in the other costs. Don't get bogged down, because a lot of these problems will put something in there like, you know, like this, but they like to work best on Tuesdays. Well, does Tuesdays come, if they said that in this problem, would that change your answer? Well, don't be afraid of something, information given to you that really doesn't go anywhere, if you will. Just need to know that you need to incorporate that 2.5 times element into this problem. So again, they're using amount here, added tooling. So I go my version of this. Again, I put this up here compared to the one that's in the book, so you can see a different way of writing it out. It's mostly what they do. So same thing, new method. Well, this new method is going to have to make the other half of the order. You need 3 million pieces. So you're going to still use that same 1.5 that was halfway through EOS, because you have another 1.5 million pieces to make. If this opportunity came after the first million, well, you'd have 1 million for the present A method, and then the next 2 million for the present B method, because you still have to finish that $3 million. Here, they made it easy, said we're halfway through. Okay, so you can use the same number of pieces. You either complete the whole job for 3 million on method A, or you stop method A and start a new method B. And what's the new method B going to cost? Well, you already know how much, since this is what it costs so far, the 1.387 for the first half. So it's reasonable to say if you complete the order on the method A, you know, you're going to have 2 times that 1.387,500. So do the same thing. You have retooling here, added tooling. Then you have, okay, other costs, that 2.5 times. Additional tooling, and you add that up and it comes to 1.135 million. So is it cheaper to switch to the new method for the last half or use the old method for the last half? Anyone want to guess which one of these numbers is smaller? Method B or method A? It's not a trick question.
New method.
Method B.
Exactly. So the answer, what was the question answering? Should we do the new method? Well, if we switch to the new method, even though we have to put some more stuff in it, it's still going to be cheaper, and we'll save $252,000. And so you can change this with the cost and say, oh no, first half was only did $1 million on part A, we're doing 2 million part B. But segregate out what you're doing, and you know, this is how I did it. It's very similar to what they did in the book. Get your pieces written out in a format. The book likes to do this, and this is how they present it. The other costs vary as direct labor costs vary. If yes, change the manufacturing method. Bottom line is they're saying, don't worry about that part. But here on the book, they put this and they actually give you the cells in column F, what the formulas are for everything. So you can say, okay, where's stuff come from? No, that confused too many people? Who is not confused at all by going through that example? It's a lot of stuff to go through. All right, 3 people are not confused. But this is the type of thing you're going to be doing on an ongoing basis. Read through the examples and go through it. Again, take your time as you go through these. Now then, we've got, what, 2 more examples I'm going to go through. I think I go through 5. Now then, here's a really confusing one. 425. Oh, how do we get out of here by 5? Don't have to get out of here by 5, but how's everyone doing? Let's get through this example, then we'll take a break. Then we'll go into breakout rooms. And I'll give you a problem from the homework. And I'll probably scan something during the break so I can put problem 1.2 up there for everyone to see. Decision making for current costs. And this is out of the book. 2 different systems are being studied. Oh, almost like 2 different methods we just like had in the last problem. Traditional filter system, whatever that means, will operate for 1 8-hour shift before being replaced. A special pleated design can last 1 full week. Now, for this purposes, you have to worry about what the pleated design means and how it works. This is the information you're given. Don't Google pleated design on filters. So, special pleated design can last 1 full week, which is longer than 1 8-hour period. Operating 24 hours a day, 3 shifts, 5 days per week. Now here's a cool thing. You got one stuff that can go in first option is listed in hours, 1 hour, 1 8-hour shift. Next one says, 24 hours a day, 3 shifts, 5 days a week. Cool, so you got one's a weekly basis, one's an hourly basis. Means you're gonna have to get these two eventually on the same time frame. Labor cost to change your filter is estimated to be $10 for each filter change because the mechanic would work overtime to change the filter. Now then, traditional filters cost $350, the special filters cost $90. They're more expensive, so should we just skip the whole thing?
No.
Good answer. You had a 50% chance. Good answer. No. What do you need to know? Think about in order to answer this question.
How long is the shop running each day? Is it a 24-hour shop?
Yeah, you got to equate these.
Difference.
Exactly, you got to equate these to time. The savings potential here is in the labor because you won't have to use that labor as often. Traditional filters cost $350. Okay, those you can say calculate how many of those equal a 1 hour, or excuse me, 5-day week, 24-hour, 3 shift. You can multiply that out to figure out are the filters themselves more or less cheaper than the $90 of the new filters, but there's an additional cost which is called labor cost to change the filter. You have to change the filter more often in the old method than compared to the new method with the $9 filters. So does the cost of the filter, which you need more of the old ones, plus the cost of the labor that requires you to change more often on the old method at $10 a pop, add up to less or more than the new filters, which should be chosen. So materials, the life of 2 filter systems. Traditional shift is 1 shift, 8 hours. Special is 1 week. Labor to change the filter is $10 per change. Materials, $350, $90, same things. 24 hours a day, 5 days a week. That answers the question, you know, as you write a problem, which should be chosen. Hope I worked this out in Excel. Well, here's my, oops, I didn't. So we'll have to use the books version. Lazy me. Which should be chosen? Well, the materials cost. The traditional one versus the special. First one, $350 for every change, for 3 changes a week, 5 days a week is $52. That's the cost of the filter. In order to equal that one $90 filter, you got to have, remember they only last 8 hours, you got 3 shifts for 24 hours. It said so in the instructions. For 1 week, 5 days, we're on a 5-day work week. Thank you, Henry Ford. So the materials is $52.50 a week. So that's less than $90 per week. But what other costs are we missing?
Labor.
Bingo! Labor. Well, it takes $10 to change it. We're going to change it 3 times a day, 5 times a week. $150. The new one, they call special, once a week. So, when you add it up, the traditional method is that materials we just calculated from $52.50 plus the $150 of labor. Materials, $52.50, labor, $202.5 a week versus a $90 filter plus only $10 in labor, $100 a week. So the lower cost alternative is the brand new special filter. Ta-da. Again, these ones, just reiterating what's in the book, read this example, but these are the types of things you got to go through. That materials, labor, other, or overhead are going to come up all the time. First, you have to equate them time-wise. You got one that gives you an 8-hour shift increments, one that gives you once a week increments. Get them together, then you can make side-by-side comparisons. And then it comes down to just at this point, it's a well, duh. But a really good engineer would also go back a year from now and say, is it really only costing us $100 a week? Or does it take the labor person 3 times longer to change the filter? And that makes sense to anybody.
Yep.
All
Yeah,
right.
I got that one.
3 people. 5 people we're working up. So we're going to talk about this and we'll go to the multiple objectives one in a minute, and I'll do that. We'll go on a break and I'll see if I can scan some stuff while you're on a break. So this chapter goes into this multiple objectives, and this is where you come up with a lot of these, and that's what we've really been already doing in my mind. What type of things are you trying to do, and where the importance of different things you want to do? Do you go to college right out of high school? Do you work for a little bit, then go to college? Or do you work for a lot and then go to college when you retire because you want to do a self-fulfillment project, which a lot of my students do. So this comes down to weighing the importance of each example and rating the value. And we're going to do this example 1.5 when we get back from a break. So I'm going to pause recording. So this example on page 23, 1.5 is a great example because it has a lot of information that to solve the problem you really don't have to care about. Now, I'm not saying it's not important, but like a lot of these type of problems, they throw a lot of stuff you would get in the real world thrown at you, which really, for the purpose of solving the problem, you don't necessarily have to ponder, if you will. And as the example here of, let's see, I think everyone's, make sure I got the right thing shared. Everyone see my PowerPoint? Again, with example 1.5, can anyone see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
I went back and forth in the program. I want to make sure the same thing's highlighted because I have multiple screens. I had to try and scan something very quickly, but I think you can read it. So, a senior graduate student has received 4 job offers, but the salary on one is unacceptably low. The other 3 job offers have been rated on 3 criteria or objectives in a scale of 0 to 10. 3 job offers, 4 job offers. He must be from OIT. 4 job offers right away. It lists these criteria of the job itself, family, so he's close enough and access to his family, and livability, about where it is. Cool. And he's weighted how important these things are in 3 criteria. At job itself is 50% of value to him compared to 30% his family, and livability. So he likes the job is most important. No, family is okay, but then 20% is just, you can live in the shack for all he cares. So how do you work through this? And the book gives a really cool thing where it just says, okay, it lists it out. Now then, first thing is, don't get bogged down in the definitions. For the purposes of job, family, and livability, to solve this problem, we don't necessarily care about the long-winded definitions they give you. It's a distraction. So you take, as I said, you do weighted averages. And some of you, if you're not used to doing this, you haven't done it in a while, but I show this in 2 different ways. The raw score, you have offers A, B, and C. One gets a score, and how do I know these scores? It's right in the middle of the example. No, he rates each one on its job, family, and livability. And without the weights, basically job A wins out because they're close, but 18, 17, 17. So if you just did it on a pure adding up the score, no, but you do weighted. And weighted means you multiply the rate of each section times the value. So he rates job 50%, so you do 50% times that 4 rating on job A. Family, is 30%, so you do 30% times that 9 value of A on family. Similarly, 20% for livability. 20% of that 5 score on A is 1. And you do that for every level, and it just goes straight out to 5.7, 6.3, and 5.5, which tells you that B, given how he rates things. Now then, this rating idea is very common, and you'll hear in classes often do a nominal group technique, what they talk about, you know, in some of these management textbooks, where you get people to sit around and basically say, as a corporation, how much do we value, you know, this element of this decision-making process? And you'll sit around in a staff meeting and say, how much should we assign to 50% or to the job, family, or livability, or whether it be commute locations, tax breaks, or whatever. You know, when Amazon was looking for new sites, they had a massive setup, very similar to this analogously, on how they rated different communities and what value they put on each rating to come up with where they're going to put their city. They do something very similar, much bigger, but very similarly. And the one caveat I give this, when you do these things and consider, is that these types of decision-making processes are only as good as the weights. And you get the weights, and you might have 10 people in a room, and sometimes people do silent ballots in their group techniques, or they'll vote on the percent of weight they want to put. And if you have the highest ranking person in the room, if it's a public vote, usually his weight wins. And so they come up with all way of saying, hey, how can we get people to give their objective opinion about this? But these decision-making processes are only as good as the value you put on those weights. So any questions on this one? It's a little easier than the last two examples, in my opinion. But before, I'm going to break you out into some other groups, some small groups, to work on one of the homework problems together. Hearing none. Okay. Someone's saying, it's been longer than we should be here. Let's go. Now then, out on, page 26 is the first homework problem, not page 26, page 28. Is the homework problem that you first get to work on. It does require some looks. Oops. Good questions from Simeon. Does it go by Simeon, or how do you pronounce your name? Where'd he go? We asked a question and left. Oh well. But good question on how grades are calculated. Our grades in this class are calculated by total points. Now they may work out to a percentage, but it's not a relative weight. You get total points in this class. So one of the first problems you have, and for those of you who don't have the text, I'll try and do better scans of all the homework problems for this week, so you have them. A farmer must decide what combination of seed, water, and fertilizer and pest control will be the most profitable and environmentally conscious for the coming year. And so they come up with, they got an agricultural student must be from Klamath Falls campus, we don't have those up here, and to say, okay, here's the following things for a given set of plans. Now then, it doesn't tell you the details of how it came up with these plans, and for the purpose of our calculations, you don't need to know. You got separate plans that have different direct costs and what they call extra market costs. Now, extra market costs is a term that gets thrown in here, and it's a real term they use, but it's some sort of cost that's extra market, meaning outside the market, some sort of imposed cost that's going to be dependent upon this methodology. Don't get bogged down in what extra market cost is. It becomes one of those things where I say it's a distraction point in a quantitative problem. Doesn't mean it's not important, because you have to know it's there, but it's just given to you as an element. So, and this is, if those of you need to pull it up, I put this file out on Canvas, problem 01-26. This PDF is out there if you need to pull this up. Now, what I want you to do, your mission, whether you decide to accept or not, I'm going to break you out into some breakout groups, which I already have here. And I want you guys to try and tackle this problem together. How you do it is going to be up to you. You might want to get, and my objective is, this is not so much something you're going to present to the class tonight, although we can if there's time. But I want you to work through it and come up, because the answer's up here. You got to answer it, which method should you choose using only direct costs or both direct and extra market costs? Now then, so the assumption is you want to pick the most profitable. Okay, so you've got costs per acre and income per acre. How many people who wants to guess? We know your costs per acre and your income per acre. How do you figure out how much you can make per acre?
Income minus cost.
Fantastic. We're cooking with gas now. Exactly. The difference between the costs. And it's giving you two sets of costs. Where one's saying only direct costs, and one's saying both the direct and extra market costs. So I'm going to break out into groups and see if you guys can come up with a solution that everyone agrees with. I'll put 4 people per group, although we've lost 1, 2, 3, some people. I'm going to give you a second. I'm going to break out rooms. Oh, it didn't say my rooms. Okay, oops, rename. All right, and then we have add a room. Give me just a moment. I have to add a room because it didn't save names. I have last. Give me just a minute. Don't know why it didn't save it, but also didn't get into that. Add a room. Rename. And add a room. Rename. Oops, misspelled that. Alrighty. So before I send you to rooms and say go, let's see who's first one. Let's see. Oh, I'm gonna change their name. Let's see who's gonna be a deer. Where's a deer? John. Give me a minute, putting it with the right one, make sure Jacob, I think that's Jake, and we've got Jake and Jacob. Now you're really making me a mistake, making me confused. I can't, where, hold on, crowd and mower, where are you? Oh, this is getting really confusing. So I'm just gonna do that, and then I'm gonna assign, so everyone know Gondor is going to have Alex, Jacob, Jake, and Sean. Mortar will have William, Antonio, Braden, and Timothy. And we're going to have the 3 and the last 3 only have 3 each. Now then, before I open all rooms, basically this is where you get to collaborate on this problem. And my goal here is to have everyone come up in your individual groups with a solution that everyone agrees with. And if we're successful, I'm going to break you out for about 10, 15 minutes at most and see what you guys come up with. And I'll be popping in and out and see what you guys would come up with on the 2 A and B answers. And also, as you're working through it, if you guys want to pull up your Excel spreadsheets, you can share your screens with each other in your breakout groups. At least you're supposed to be able to. It said you could. But then that thing didn't work either. So that's your objective for the next, I'm going to check in about 10 after 5. And if you need some more time after that, but come up with a methodology of how you're going to do this. And you should all be able to figure out together. And if you're not sure, you have 3 other people or 2 other people, depending on your group size, to work through this. So, any questions on what you're supposed to do? You're all ready to go wild? Is anyone ready to go wild?
Oh boy.
Okay.
Yes.
Your objection is 126. The problem's out there if you don't have your textbook, but work together This is where you can collaborate. It's not cheating. And come up with a format for 126. And I'll give you some hints at the end of mine if you need some, but I'll poke in and out of your different rooms to see what questions you have. But you work together to come up with a format and methodology of what you're going to do. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. You should get invitations to join.
And then whichever one has the most profit is the correct answer.
Yeah, so it would be, I guess I had actually done B first. You get 300 profit for A.
Yeah, for A, yeah. And then, so for A, I said option B is the most profitable at $600. And
Right.
then B is the most profitable is A for $300.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I had written it down on a piece of paper. I'm gonna copy it into a spreadsheet just so, if we gotta like turn something in or something, right?
Yeah. Anything that we're not understanding.
Yeah.
Doesn't he look like Dave Ramsey?
What's that?
Do you guys know who Dave Ramsey is?
Yeah.
Doesn't he look like him?
Yeah, he does kind of.
Yeah.
And he's talking about finances.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm much more fun than he is. Well, Toby said so. It looks like you're cooking with gas and your problem there. Cool. I'll see what else people are doing.
Does that look right?
So far, so good. Yep.
All right.
Correct plus extra would be A. All right.
Oh, brilliant. Except I don't like your font. just kidding. No, that font, no, I hate Courier. Okay, but no, what is that, Clifford? Yeah, no. No.
This is just what I got when I opened up Excel. I just opened it up and started speed typing, basically. So.
Oh, work outside the box. You got. No, that's fine. I actually use Tyson and Roman for everything, though, but I'm anal retentive that way. Cool. Let me go check the last group and see what they got.
All right.
Maybe with a 60-second countdown. Ah, here's my mouse.
Next class period, because oh boy.
I'm to bug my wife until she tells me how to run Excel. How do I do these buttons?
Hi guys, do you guys have a solution yet? Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, yes, I just stopped sharing it, but that's our solution.
No, I say, as long as you have. Fantastic. So I told the other group, though, I hate that font. So just oh, Tyson Roman, beautiful. just be facetious. I don't want to say he mandated we use this in Excel. All right, let me see if everyone's gone. I may give everyone I think everyone's done. I'm going to double check and give everyone a 60-second countdown. Be right back. Okay, screen share. All right, we're all back. So how painful was that? Not
It
painful.
was manageable enough with some Excel know-how.
So, but this one of the things we're going to be doing, and it's sort of the last thing we'll do in classes, except some Q&A, but because we're running so late tonight, it's hoping to have us out here by 5. You know, given that we spent the first 45 minutes just talking about the syllabus and that. But we're going to spend some time every week in breakout rooms working on the homework problems. And as I said before, at least every week, at least you have at least one of the homework problems already done, at least formatted. And looked like everyone I talked to got through this. Again, you also did the same thing that we looked at the examples. You put it in nice grid form like they had, and then did the costing out of that. So you all came up with a nice format. Again, okay, maybe you could argue it's not the most intensely complicated, but the biggest part of this, of all these problems you're gonna find this week, is getting the data out there, just sort of putting it down, especially if they don't give you a nice happy table, in a format that says, okay, how can I look at what I'm doing? And ultimately always think about in the back of your mind, how can I teach this to someone else? Because someone else may want to see it. It might be me, or it might be a boss, might be a bank. So, but get used to doing that. I'll break out into groups next week and work on a couple of the problems. You don't have to stop at 2. If we have time, we'll do more than 1. I don't care, perfectly honest, I don't care if we work through the entire homework assignment in class. Depends how late you want to stay. But, so at least you have some time to talk about some of the problems. That's why it's really good before you come to class to at least just read the homework problems. If you haven't started them, they're going to be working on that week. Because if something doesn't make sense, that's going to be a chance to ask ahead of time and say, hey, I have no idea what the heck they're talking about. And I have no problem talking through it. I'm not going to do the whole problem for you, but I have no problem talking through it to make sure you get the idea of what type of problem it is. So read through them once in future classes. Doesn't mean you have to start working on them, but just so you get an idea whether, I don't know what the heck this guy's asking, or, okay, that makes sense. And when we break out in the breakout rooms, you can help each other on those types of things. The last little bit I'm going to talk to you just for 5 minutes on is the ethics section in this book. Now, we sort of skipped over that, went through the examples, because I just wanted to get to examples tonight. The ethics, in my opinion, the book ethics section is really kind of oddly placed. And really, I think it was the 12th edition of this book, which came out, this book's been around forever, but editions come out about every 3 years. So you can do the math back to 1992, I think it was. Then all of a sudden, everyone, with all the things that happened 20 years ago, Enron, WorldCom, all these scandalous things, bridges falling down, people dying on walkways that weren't engineered properly, and everything in the world started having to have, except for the accountants were the last ones, we had to have ethics sections. Sections ethics. Now, ethics is a field of mine. My dissertation was on ethical research. So I'm not discounting ethics, but the way he puts ethics in here is kind of like, hey, we're talking about this and that, and oh, by the way, let's talk about ethics and why you have to value it. So the main gist of this ethics is, you have to read through it because the points that it talks about on the discussion question, which I think actually comes from problem 136, I just transcribed it into the discussion group, is about ethics and the right and wrong decision making. And professional organizations and they use the National Engineering Association here, and there's other engineering associations and product management associations, and accountants, believe it or not, although they were the biggest cause on some of these big scandals of WorldCom and the others in 20 years ago, they were the last to really adopt ethical guidelines, which is always, I find it ironic. So the idea is that when they talk about the National Society of Professional Engineers, and it's worth meeting there, but different companies and organizations have ethical standards, and they talk about in the statement about why we have to care about it. Bridges should not fall down, things like that. And so they're trying to take ethical examples and apply it to this nice decision-making thing. Ethics is really important nowadays. I'm just not comfortable with how he presents it. It's not in the best, cleanest format. And it's sort of just, he's talking, here we're talking about problems and quantitative analysis, then segues into ethics, then back into decision-making again. I'd rather see a chapter on ethics set aside, that's just me. But you're going to use these concepts in your discussion postings this week. And so don't skip the ethics section, because I guarantee there's some stuff on the quiz on ethics, because it's a pet peeve of mine. And quite frankly, college graduates nowadays, and you guys, I assume, are planning on being those one day, when you go out in the job market and you're getting those 4 job offers, like the example we went through over in school today, or in class tonight, if we're to believe what everyone's saying about college students today, you care about the ethical buildup of the company you go to work for. In engineering, it's important for all the reasons we talked about. Bridges should not fall down, but you care about this. Now, so don't skip it. It's important nowadays, and it's actually coming up more and more in job interviews. Ethical questions are coming up and how you deal with it. But it's supposed to be because people choose jobs nowadays. I'm from the 80s generation where you know, job interview is like, would you do this? And it's like, okay, how much more money do you want to give me? Nowadays, people are judgmental in how you do that. So keep that in mind as you go through the ethics section of the book. When I go to the postings too, I will come in sometimes, and I say this on discussion groups, I don't comment on everyone's post. So if I come through and I scan it and comment on someone's, but I don't comment on your postings, don't take it personally. I don't have time to go through, I do read them all, but I don't have time to come through everyone's single posting, especially when we have 16 people in this class. So that means 16 initial postings plus at least one reply on each. So that's 32 I have to read through. I'm not gonna make a comment on it. Don't be offended if I don't comment on yours. You say, oh, you commented on Alex's 2 weeks ago, but not mine. He must hate me. No. So I will get to where I can, and sometimes something piques my interest in a certain way. But if I don't write something specifically about the postings in your stream, don't be offended. Odds are I'm gonna get to you sooner or later. So before I let you go, I know this was a bit of a disjointed class tonight because we started off talking about all the syllabus and Canvas and all that stuff. And then we went on to just working examples, so it was a big segue. But I'm hoping to just give you an idea about what we can expect next week. As I said, I'll start, the first thing I do next week is work through the examples in the homework. So before I let you go, after a very long class tonight, any questions? Hearing none, okay. Again, if you don't have a book and need me to Xerox something, or I should say scan something, shoot me an email and I'll try and scan the problems, the homework problems tonight. I will post this video on the online, and so you can refer this. It's going to be a long video. It'll probably take me about 3 hours to render on YouTube. I'll post the link for this. Do take the time to go to that website for the textbook. There's a lot of good information there. And last chance to ask questions. No one looking through my chat. So I'm going to say good night. Be safe out there. And I'll see you, if not before, I'll see you next Monday at the same place. And I'm available. Need help on any problems with homework, just shoot me something. I'm around all week. So be good, and I'll see you all guys next Monday, if not before.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.